Thank you, Tim.
So yes, Ron.
I want you to.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you all for having us here today. This is tonight. It's a good group, and what an important effort we're undertaking as Republicans in the 5th District to unseat a person who's not fit to serve the 5th District.
Amen.
And thank you all for hosting this event. I also want to thank you all for the election in November, because it was a resounding victory. It was a resounding message, not only for the people of Virginia, who so desperately want a new direction in this country, but also it was a message that was heard in Washington, D.C. and all across this country. What happened in Virginia, and Virginia's got a long history of being the beginning of good things. What happened in Virginia is I think, portends well for what is going to happen in November. We can't do it without the hard work of the local committees, the people who put up the signs, the people who make the phone calls, and the people who go door to door, the people who spread the word. We can't do it without that help. That's what you all represent, what you all are, and thank you for that great victory. Bob McDonald, Bill Bowman, and Kenny Michelle. Now that that election is over, we now turn our attention to November of 2010. Probably one of the most important elections for us in our lifetime. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Robert Hurt. I live over in Chatham, Pennsylvania County, not far from here. I went off to college in Hampton City down the road. Came back after law school to our little courthouse down in Chatham. And I tell you, driving through Boydton, I always love coming through Boydton. Ken Boyd, are these your ancestors? No. But I love coming to Boydton because it's a wonderful little town. And it's a courthouse down a lot like Chatham. You have the courthouse, you have the law offices, but one thing I did notice is it looks like y'all don't have stoplight, which we do in Chatham. That's a big deal. But I love this town. I love the fact that your streets are Jefferson, Madison, and Washington. It's a wonderful aspect. And I think it speaks to the goodness of the people. But after I finished law school, I came back to Chatham. And I settled there with my wife, Catherine, and our 3 boys. We've got Charles, Clem, John, and 10, 8, and 5. We were blessed to be able to come back into our small town. I was blessed to be able to get a job as a lawyer there and stay there. My family's been there for many generations. And the idea that we were able to come back and do that really is it what I think is part of the American dream. And that's for sure. After being there for several years working in my law practice, I ran for Chatham County Council and was elected with 82% of the vote, knocked on every single door in the little town. After serving in the Chatham County Council, there was redistricting and a new seat was drawn that included Pennsylvania County, Henry County, and Martinsville, and I was elected to the House of Delegates, representing the people of those counties in that city. In 2007, Charles Hawkins announced his retirement from the state Senate. Many of you all may know Charles Hawkins, who spent a lot of time down here with the tobacco commission. But when he announced his retirement, it was natural for me to run for his seat. So now I sit in Charles Hawkins' seat representing Pennsylvania, Campbell, Franklin, and the city of Danville. I'm proud of my record. I'm proud of my service, and most of all, I feel privileged to be able to represent such fine people in Southside Virginia, such fine people just like the folks over here in Mecklenburg County, Williamsburg County, and Brunswick. And it's been a great honor for me to be able to get to know them over the last several months. My time in the General Assembly has been marked with, we've had a lot of challenges over the last 8 years, but I'm proud of my record. It's a good, conservative, strong record. I'm proud of the work that we've done in standing up to tax increases, to increase spending. I'm proud of the fact that I have a lifetime A rating with the NRA. I have 100% lifetime rating with the Virginia Society for Human Life, which is, of course, pro-life, the premier pro-life. I've got a 95% Family Foundation lifetime rating, which is, of course, an organization that's dedicated to those things that those of us in this part of the world think are important. also proud that I've got 100% rating with the NFIB. The small businesses all across my Senate district, all across the 5th district, the small businesses are what make our economy work. I understand that, and I've been proud to work for small business since I've been in the legislature. Proud to have that rating. Since my first election, we have repealed taxes, and I'm proud to have stood up to tax increases. In 2007, we fought and beat Tim Kaine on the massive gas tax increase that he was fighting for. We repealed the estate tax, which of course, especially those of you who own small businesses and have farms here, you know what a terrible thing the estate tax is. And we know that Tom Perriello just voted to reimpose the estate tax at the federal level. A terrible, terrible thing. A terrible thing for the small business in the family farm. And that's something that we've done in Virginia. I was proud to be a leader to repeal the estate tax. And I've always fought for balanced budgets. I've always believed that fiscal responsibility is a cornerstone of service and representation in our Virginia General Assembly. And we have a long history of fiscal conservatism in Virginia, and that's, of course, in our Constitution. Balanced budget is required by our Constitution, something that the federal government ought to have. And I'm proud to always have fought for a balanced budget. And that oftentimes means making hard decisions. It means making hard decisions about what you're going to cut to make your budget balanced. And I've done that again and again. I've had nice people who come to me and sit in my office and they say, Mr. Hurt, this is a good program, and we need to fund it. And I say, well, we can't fund it. We don't have the revenue to fund it. And they say, well, why can't we raise taxes? Why can't we find the revenue? Those are hard conversations, but I can tell you this, it's never a conversation that takes place in Washington, D.C., and that's something that needs to change. That Washington, D.C.'s answer is, we'll borrow more money or we'll print more money. That's the answer when it comes to fiscal responsibility in Washington, D.C. Now, one of the questions that I get from time to time from folks that I talk to is a question about the 2004 tax bill. I don't know if you all remember that, but I was one of a handful of Republicans who voted for a compromise back in 2004. And the way that happened, the way that came about was, we come off 2 years of tough budgets. You had the Senate of Virginia, and I was not in the Senate at the time, very important to note. The Senate of Virginia had a $4 billion tax increase on the table. The House, where I was, had zero. We were going to hold the line. You had a Democrat governor, you had essentially a Democrat Senate that were fighting for the $4 billion tax increase. You had those of us in the House that were fighting for nothing. We went to session in January, February, March, April, May, June. 6 months. No budget. We were getting ready to shut the government down. And that's what was facing Virginia. That's what was facing us in the legislature. So I was one of a few people who said, I don't think that it is consistent with my oath of office. I don't think that it's fiscally responsible to shut the government down. And at the end of the day, the only option on the table was compromise of $1 billion tax. And I voted for that. I did not like it. I hated it. But I felt like it was fiscally responsible at that time. And so that's how we got to that place at that time. But I think it shows, while there are some who think perhaps we should shut the government down, and I respect that. There are that.